Welcome, everyone, to another edition of, it's the Irish Breakdown podcast, but it's also Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat, along with IrishBreakdown.com. Get my shows all mixed up. I don't know what I'm doing sometimes. I'm Vince Siderio. That's Jesse Stiers over there. And we are with you for the full 2 hours. Well, I'm with you for the full 2 hours. Jesse's going to be here for the first hour. And then the second hour for Rapid Fire, I'm going to be joined by the one and only Trevor Trowbridge is going to jump on. And so we've got a potpourri, if you will, of hosts today.
What is that word you just said?
A potpourri?
Too big of a word for me.
Well, it's a mix of people because it takes a village to replace Sean Stiers when he's not on the show, as he is wheels up for his trip to somewhere with women's basketball. I probably should have looked before the show started. Let's see. It's either going to be SMU.
I think it's SMU.
Is it SMU? See, we were both wrong. He's going to Winston-Salem.
Dang it. Was it Wake Forest?
Yeah, he's on his way to Wake Forest.
Right before you said SMU, I was getting ready to say, I think it's Wake Forest. And then you said SMU. And I think the next road game is at SMU.
They've got back-to-back road games here to not finish off the season, but I think they've got 4 games left. And we've got Wake Forest on the road, SMU on the road, back home for Syracuse. And then they finish up on the road against Louisville. So 2 very winnable games for the women's basketball team. We can talk about that if people so desire. It is Mailbag Day, and so you guys run the show. You guys are the ones that are driving things. I did put a post up over on the premium message board at boards.irishbreakdown.com, and so we'll pull some questions from there. Of course, Salty has given us enough questions to get us through the next couple of weeks, so we always appreciate Salty and his contribution to the show. So thank you for that, Salty. And so we'll kind of go back and forth. We'll see what we got. We've got a bunch start up already. We've got questions in there for Jesse and the Cowboys. And so
I have to get my first mailbag question for you in.
Oh boy, what do you got?
Yeah. Okay. Are we ready to start this?
We might as well at this point. I mean, you're saying you got something ready to roll. Let's go.
Word made back to me last week, let me restart here. I received a word yesterday at the beginning of the show.
Okay.
That there is someone amongst the IB Nation Sportsbeat crew that believes
it's a very narrowed version of people
that believes I'm not going to be in attendance for the spring game. So I'm just curious where these accusations are stemming from. And I'll admit to say that I'm probable. I'm not day to day. I'm not game time decision. I'm not, doubtful. I'd say I'm probable right now.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to at least defend myself in person, because I made it very clear when we were speaking about this. By the way, I love whatever you've got on the wall there. It's pretty cool. I feel like that's new.
Oh, yeah. The shamrock, right?
Yeah. The other way. There you go.
There it is.
I dig that. Anyway, I'm like a squirrel. It just caught my eye as I was talking. But so yesterday we were talking about the Blue Gold game and how it is going to be carried right here on WSBT, and how it's going to be me and Sean and you. And I said, well, we might have to pump the brakes a little bit on Jesse for the mere fact that you're not single anymore, but it's just you and the wife. You are a bit of a jet setter is the word that I used. I mean, you're taking off for golf trips, and you're going to professional sporting events, and you have the life that both Sean and I aspire to have that we cannot have.
We're kind of in this honeymoon phase. The first year of marriage.
That's
we're
fair.
Just like, you know what? A 2-week honeymoon wasn't enough. We just kind of want to keep the party going.
I love that. I love that for you. And so I was just saying, like, if something else comes up,
you wouldn't be surprised.
Exactly. That's the only point that I was making, because frankly, I'm looking forward to being in a Stiers sandwich up in the booth, all right, and having some fun for the Blue Gold game. But I think probable is a right on the button. I think probable is right on the button. Like, you're probably going to be there, but just in case, you're going to leave the door open in case there's a better offer.
Chance.
You know,
sometimes you know this. Sometimes the wife puts things on the schedule
Yep.
weeks prior, and all you can really do is say, okay, yeah, I guess that's what we're doing. Like, I got to go down to Virginia next weekend. That just popped up. It's a wedding shower for one of my now cousin-in-laws. So, you know,
Yep.
it's one of those things where you just say, yeah, like, I don't want to drive to Virginia, but it's fun.
Dude, listen, I totally get that. And the other piece of my of my even bringing it up in the first place is it's down the street for your dad and I. Like, it's in town. You actually have to make the effort of driving into town for this particular event. So I could understand something closer pops up. You know, I get it. Like, I'm not throwing shade by any stretch of the imagination. So Salty doesn't like the fact that I used the term a Steyer's sandwich, made him uncomfortable. Well,
you just know I live the lifestyle of a B-list celebrity.
that's exactly correct, and I'm jealous. That's all there was to it. I was jealous, so I didn't want it to come off.
All your kids are through college. You can go back to that life.
Listen, there's a reason we had kids early, okay? And now I wasn't anticipating this many, but it is what it is. There is light at the distant tunnel. It is a distant tunnel, but it's there. So, class of 2033 can't get here soon enough.
You already know the year.
You're darn right I do. You're darn right I do. But no, I appreciate you bringing that up. And like I said, I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully the probable becomes a game day situation. You know, it's going to be fun.
I get activated from the
That's right.
Reserve.
100%. 100%. All right. So let's start rolling through some of these questions. Producer Ty, I didn't get here soon enough to ask, so I'm just going to ask that you put into the private chat when we need to have some breaks. So you let me know, and I'll make it happen. All right. So we'll just start at the top here with a Salty question. He asks, which confers more pressure on a starting quarterback? A high school recruit starting for a blue blood program like Notre Dame, or transfer into a program for a grotesque amount of money? So where do you feel more pressure if you're the starting quarterback for a team?
I'm going to have to go with the first option, you know, a young high school recruit going into a blue blood program. I think that, you know, the latter, the transferring to a program for a grotesque amount of money, I think that you've already proven yourself, you know, like you're being offered that amount of money to go somewhere because you are really good. And if I'm going to be honest with you, Vince, if all else fails, at least you're still getting the grotesque amount of money. Like when you're a freshman coming into a blue blood program, there's a lot you still don't know, and you're trying to prove yourself and show that you deserve to be not only a starter, but you're competent enough to lead that team to success. Because at a blue blood program, it's not enough just to come in and do a sufficient job. You have to be able to you know, go 9-3, 10-2, 11-1, and be, you know, at the door knocking on a playoff spot.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think there's a lot of pressure for a freshman to come in and do that. I mean, if you're making a grotesque amount of money, then you've done it someplace before. You know, I mean, most programs aren't going to be paying that much money for a kid that hasn't done something, right? So, I mean, you know, you've got you know, the Arizona State quarterback who's going to LSU. You've got the TCU quarterback going to IU. You know, they have at least started. You know, they've had success to a degree. Now they're expected to have more success than they've ever had at their new stops, no doubt about that. So there's definitely pressure, but nothing like being a freshman, a true freshman, by the way, starting at a blue blood like that. That's some pretty serious pressure. So I'm with you on that one. I think it's the freshman on this one. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, Salty wants to know, are you interested in the Winter Olympics? And if so, what are your 3 most interesting competitions? And he says, besides curling, obviously.
I feel like you and I have answered this question, maybe more so the first part. You know, Vince and I are both lovers of the Olympics.
Yeah.
Winter, summer, it doesn't matter. You know, we're talking about national pride, you know, representing yourself and your country as well. So for me in the Winter Olympics, I think it really boils down to speed skating, skiing, and snowboarding are kind of my top 3. I would say honorable mention is hockey, but we were talking about this a little bit yesterday. Like if you could, win a medal in any Olympic sport, what would it be? And I went with speed skating. I would 100% selfishly go for individual sports than team sports when it comes to the Olympics, because you could say you are single-handedly the best person at that event. Yes, it'd be cool to win a Team USA hockey medal, but it kind of gets glossed over. You're one person on a team of people. When you win something like the speed skating, you could say you are the fastest speed skater in the entire world. So that's where I'm at. I love the speed skating, the skiing, and the snowboarding.
Love that. I'm trying to think of how I would be different. I do very much enjoy the speed skating. Well, I like both sets of speed skating. You got the big oval, and then you got the short track, right? And two very different kinds of speed skating, and two very different kinds of athletes that do that particular those two types of speed skating events. But I like both of them for sure. I have actually enjoyed the hockey. I'm looking forward to the gold medal match between the United States and Canada in women's hockey, which is going to be, by the way, tomorrow at about 1:10 Eastern time. So if you're a hockey fan, if you're a United States fan, or if you're a Canadian fan, I guess that's a thing. Definitely tune in for that. I'm going to try to have that like on my third monitor over at work. Watch the United States take home the gold. Obviously, he said curling doesn't count because I have enjoyed watching that. I do enjoy figure skating. I mean, that it's an impressive thing to be able to do.
Dancing on ice is hard.
I'm just saying I can't dance on non-ice, so there's that. I love all Olympics, so it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to be tuning in to whatever's on. That's how I roll for the Olympics. So we as a media grouping had an opportunity to speak to the transfer players today. And we're going to talk more about that in rapid fire in the 6:00 hour. But there are some questions here in the mailbag about some of the things that some of the guys said. And Vanilla Chill has a question here.
First time I've seen Vanilla Chill. So what is up, Vanilla Chill?
Here's an interesting little tidbit. I had a training this morning over at one of the schools, and Vanilla Chill was in the training. He introduced himself to me.
No way.
Yeah. Vanilla Chill was in the training. And so it was very nice to meet you, Vanilla Chill. He said he's been a member of Irish Breakdown since 2021. So it's like,
what are the odds?
At the beginning, he tracked me down, man. I appreciated it. That was awesome.
He even said, I'm Vanilla Chill. Like,
yes, he did. He goes, I'm Vanilla Chill over on the message board. I'm like, well, I know your handle, so I appreciate that's awesome. So what's up, Vanilla Chill? Thanks for saying something today. I always like that. It's always fun. But anyway, see, he says, hell yeah. So it was awesome. It was awesome to meet him. But anyway, they had an opportunity to speak to all the transfers, and the two wide receiver transfers from Ohio State, Graham and Porter. They talked about watching CJ Carr and seemingly as part of why they decided to come to Notre Dame. So his question is, how important is it for the future of recruiting at wide receiver is having a guy like CJ Carr?
Yeah, I think it's massively important, and I think that is understating it at the same time. This is something, we talked about this, I feel like 2-3 years ago when Notre Dame was constantly going to the portal and struggling in the wide receiver recruiting. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the debacle that was Chauncey Stuckey at the wide receiver position coach. And so some of the things that we talked about is you have to get consistent at the quarterback, and you have to develop an in-house quarterback who can go out there and show you that Notre Dame is a type of offense that premier wide receivers want to play in, not only because they can run the ball and, kind of be efficient underneath, but you got to have, like, every big time wide receiver wants a quarterback who can throw the deep ball, who can throw the ball over the top, and you can make a big plays. CJ Carr has shown that, and he's shown that he's going to be here at least this season and potentially next season. And when you talk about, not only some of the best young quarterbacks in all of college football, but CJ Carr in his first year stacked up statistically with Dante Moore, Ty Simpson. We kind of talked about it on yesterday's show a little bit. He had really good national numbers for being a guy that's so young at the same time. So I think that this goes hand in hand. When you have a quarterback that can put on film, we can run this electric offense. He can throw the ball downfield. More importantly, the way he throws that sideline shoulder fade down the field along the numbers, that's huge. So I just think it's no coincidence that you see an uptick not only in wide receiver recruiting, but also in transfer portals as well.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame hasn't had a quarterback like CJ Carr in a very, very long time. And it is not a coincidence that they pulled in a great wide receiver class, of incoming freshmen. And, not only that, the two transfers from Ohio State that were 5-star guys when they went to Ohio State. And we know why they went to Ohio State, right? There's no doubt about
wide receiver,
that. 100%. And Brian Hartline's no longer at Ohio State. And he was a big reason that those receivers were going there, right? And the one thing about the transfer portal era is you can't really stack recruits anymore, and that's what Ohio State was doing. To their credit, by the way, like, good for them that they're able to do that.
I was surprised it went on for so long and it was as deep as it was with the portal and NIL. It's like, you guys are still getting everyone,
I know. I know. But now the talent is starting to not dissipate, but it is starting to spread out because – there's only one football and there's only so many spots on the field, right? And so, Notre Dame is the beneficiary of Graham and Porter coming over to Notre Dame, and a massive piece of that is CJ Carr. And I haven't heard the actual audio of them talking about it, but what I can say is whatever they said, they're underselling it. I mean, bottom line, if you're a big-time receiver, you're going to go someplace where the quarterback can get you the football. And get you the football in a manner that you're going to be able to be successful. That is literally the definition of CJ Carr. So it's massive. It's absolutely huge. And, they're talking about Gina Gaduli in the chat and what his legacy is going to be at Notre Dame and all of those kinds of things. Obviously, having a guy like CJ Carr, who is homegrown, who's been here since his freshman year, all that doesn't hurt. That does not hurt. And let's see. Can we now have a succession of quarterbacks at Notre Dame, starting with CJ Carr and you can say, some of the transfer guys that they've brought in, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about guys that come to Notre Dame as freshmen, get developed, and then move into the starting lineup. Can we now see at Notre Dame a succession of quarterbacks that are homegrown? I'm hoping so. And if they can, they're going to continue to get the wide receiver recruits. No doubt. No doubt about that. Speaking of the quarterback position, Andre Tonsel wants to know, do you believe that the quarterback position is the most important on the field?
There's no doubt. There is no doubt that it's like, it becomes magnified in the NFL. You simply cannot win a championship without a good quarterback. And I think that holds true even more in the college level where there's more disparity and there's more, a quarterback has more influence on the college game as well. You would have to have special circumstances to have an average to below average quarterback and win a national championship at the college level. In today's day and age, you have to have a good offense. And I think obviously that's led by a really good quarterback. So there's no question to me that it is the most important football position that there is.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I didn't play quarterback. You didn't play quarterback. You were a defensive guy, and you still realize that the quarterback is the most important guy on the field.
Well, our senior year of high school, we had a guy, we literally couldn't find a quarterback.
Yeah.
And, that it didn't bode well for us.
It showed, yeah. Right? I mean, let's be honest, it showed. And Notre Dame has been in a position over the last decade or two where the missing link has been an elite quarterback. And I remember having many a show with Brian, and then even before that, talking about like Notre Dame has talent here, and here, but they're missing that elite quarterback, so they can't get over the hump.
Yeah.
And that has been an issue at Notre Dame. It's not an issue anymore, right? And, you can say that, bringing Riley Leonard was an elite quarterback. Got into the national championship game, no doubt, right? But now you've got an elite quarterback in CJ Carr who wins differently, obviously, than Riley Leonard did. But he's elite, and nobody's debating that. He's elite. He's got the best odds on FanDuel right now to win the Heisman Trophy, right? I mean, and Notre Dame has the best odds on FanDuel to win the national championship. So, those two things are not true if the other one isn't true. You know what I mean? So, having an elite quarterback definitely does that, and it's definitely the most important position on the field. I'm sure maybe somebody who plays wide receiver might disagree or whatever, but the quarterback knows everything about the offense, top to bottom, every position, all of those things, and it's extremely important, and has to know how to read defenses on top of it. So,
there's not a harder position to play either. Like when people, get all upset that quarterbacks start making X amount and this and that, it's like they have the hardest job, and there's no question. I think the only thing that you could say position-wise, and maybe this is getting too cute, but I think head coach is also a big factor as well. But, that's
sure.
I consider that a position. You're the head coach position, but you can't get over the hump in college with a mediocre coach, or maybe for example, Brian Kelly said that Notre Dame, his success reached a ceiling at Notre Dame. I think the more you take time to reflect and look back on it, I think Brian Kelly hit his ceiling as a head coach.
Agreed. Yeah, 100% in a lot of different ways. Like, he brought Notre Dame out of the dumpster, right? I mean, because it was rough when he took over.
And credit to him for doing that.
100%. Absolutely.
He provided stability,
yep,
consistency, and not stability and consistency as 8 wins, 7, they were 10 wins every year. And I think there's a lot of credit that has to go to that. But let's just be honest. I don't think that he was ever going to get over that hump in terms of the national championship. And I feel because Marcus Freeman is an elevated recruiter, person, coach, that they have bridged that gap rather quickly in terms of their pursuit of another national championship.
Right. All right, let's get to one more before we take a commercial break at the bottom of the hour. And this one is directed right at you from Tyler Evans. It says, Jesse, do you think the Cowboys picking at 12 is too far down to pick Jeremiah Love? Or would you trade up to get him? Just curious.
Yeah, I definitely think, oh man.
You think 12, let's break it up. Do you think 12 is too low to get your hands on Jeremiah Love?
Sorry, I got distracted. I was actually following on my phone. The Swedes just tied it up with the US with a minute 30 left in the hockey game. So
in the third period?
So that looks like it's going to go to overtime.
Okay.
I don't think the Cowboys are trading up. They need to draft. They have 2 first-round draft picks. They need them to be defensive guys. Jeremiah Love either goes to the Saints or to the Chiefs. And if he gets past that, I think the Cowboys could find themselves in another CeeDee Lamb situation where they didn't expect CeeDee Lamb to be in their lap. I think he was at pick 18 when they picked him, and they just had to pick him simply because he was the best player on the board. You can't pass up certain talents. Jeremiah Love is the number one difference maker outside of a quarterback in this entire draft. The Chiefs were 25th in running last year. They've had problems at the running back position. And I think it's only going to help Patrick Mahomes as he gets older and they find stability at the wide receiver position again. I think the wild card becomes, what do the Saints do? I think the Saints take an offensive player. I don't know if that's running back or wide receiver. If they go running back, it'll be Love. If they go wide receiver, I think Love goes to the Chiefs. If he makes it past the Chiefs, he could be in the Cowboys' lap. And it would make a lot of sense. He would be the final piece to that Cowboys offense. And it would really put me as a fan in a bind because they need to draft defense. But how can you say no to the most, explosive, and he was from Notre Dame, player on the board? It would be really, really conflicting.
What do you give up? To move up? What are you giving up? Just picks? You giving up players? What are you doing?
To get Jeremiah Love?
Yeah.
I don't think that they need to actively pursue him. I think if he falls in their lap, you take advantage of the situation. But I don't think that they're going to be actively pursuing because they need so much help on defense.
Okay. So you're not moving up. I
No.
appreciate that. All right. Well, I tell you what, it's 5:30 on the button, and I like to make producer Ty happy. So we are going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to go check out the premium message board at boards@irishbreakdown.com, see what kind of questions we got from our premium message board subscribers. On this Mailbag Wednesday, you are listening to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat along with irishbreakdown.com. Welcome back to Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat along with oursbreakdown.com. I'm Vince D'Addario. That guy is Jesse Stiers. And it is a Mailbag Wednesday, and so we're diving deep into the mailbag, and we are answering the questions of our listeners, and we are also answering the questions of our premium message board subscribers. And so we're going to bring up some of that. Party foul for me, by the way. I don't have a separate device on me to watch the hockey game. I'm slipping back and forth like on my tabs, and that only works during the commercial break, Jesse. So last time I checked, they're in overtime, and it's 3-3, by the way. So let me see if I can unmute you here. There you go. Go ahead. Can't hear a word you're saying. I don't know what's going on your end.
Here we go. Hey. Right side is 3-on-3 is sudden death. There's no time in between. They're not going to resurface the ice. They're immediately into overtime. Should favor the United States, and the top Swede looks kind of concussed right now. So that also bodes well for the United States. Dahlin looks no, he took a hard fall, and I don't know if he's recovered since. So
fair enough.
All these games have gone to overtime today. The Canadians were huge favorites. That game went to overtime. The Finland game went to overtime, and now the United States game is in overtime. So just got to hope to win this bad boy in a sudden death first goal wins.
Look at you. Look at you. You're just a hockey aficionado now. That's all.
Yeah, I gained some hockey experience in college. All my roommates were Canadian, so that bodes well. And then we're in a group chat right now. Kind of, we've been kind of sending jabs at each other all day.
Well, they're going to be very sad tomorrow when the women dominate the Canadian women's hockey team. It's going to be ugly. But anyway,
I have a parlay that the men's and women's both win gold. So
okay, I like where your head's at on that one. I like where your head's at.
Hoping that one wins me some money.
All right, so we got, like I said, we've got some questions here from the premium message board subscribers. The first one from Fish ND says, first question, how is your health, Coach D? It's funny that you should ask that. Brian called me last night and asked me the very same question. And the whole appendicitis and cancer and all of the things just seem like a distant memory. Like I feel great. And it feels like nothing happened, which is a very weird thing to say. But I don't know, man. It's like a fever dream that took place. So I just get a friendly reminder, when I look down at my midsection and see a bunch of scars. But other than that, feeling good, man. Like nothing happened. So apparently you really only do need one kidney to survive. Because I don't.
Let me ask you this: okay. Have you taken advantage of that 15 pounds you lost?
I think I'm doing a pretty good job of putting it back. I have not weighed myself recently, but I still feel smaller than I did pre-surgery. So
all right.
It's a mental game. It's all
as long as the pants are a little bit looser, that's all that matters.
That is true. They are. And I have had people comment, which is a weird thing to comment. I see celebrations, by the way. I just flipped over on the tab. I see celebrations. I think the USA won. I don't know. You'll have to confirm on that one for me.
I hope so.
All right. In the meantime, we've got one.
They did win.
Okay. All right. I thought it looked like they were celebrating, and it looked like the Swedes were very unhappy. So that's good if you're rooting for America. All right. JP is for Notre Dame. Has a couple here. He goes, what'll happen first? Notre Dame will win a college football national championship, or the Notre Dame men's college basketball team will make it to a regional final. Not even a national championship, a regional final.
Notre Dame will win a national championship in football before basketball dreams of having a regional appearance.
Listen, I know that sounds absurd, but I completely agree with you. I really, when they hired Micah Shrewsbury, I really wanted him to be the guy. I really wanted him to be able to, take this team and do great things with it. You know what I mean? And I actually, we had this conversation on this show when he got the job, and he said in his opening press conference, like, I'm here to win a national championship. I was like, pump the brakes. Like, let's not even have that conversation yet. How about we continuously make it to the tournament? You know, that kind of like, let's temper the expectations a little bit. And I realize it's an opening, you know, press conference and all of those kinds of things, but like, that was too much for me. And I was like, I don't think he's got the eye on the prize, the correct prize. And so far, you know, through year 3 or almost through year 3, they're no closer to that than they were when he took over. Now, good recruiting class this year, good recruiting class last year. You know, let's see if they can build on that. He signed a 7-year contract, and he's only in year 3, so he's not going anywhere. But I have way more confidence in the football program than I do in the basketball program right now. As Stymie in the chat says, the men's team might make the ACC tournament, let alone the NCAA tournament. And he's absolutely correct. They're on the outside looking in right now. So that's a bit of an issue right now.
Football is winning the national championship next year, so the window for men's basketball is very, very, very small.
It is very small. Are you worried about the expectations for the football team right now? Because there's a lot of people that are in that boat that Notre Dame is going to win it next year, and you know CJ Carr is going to win the Heisman. Like, are you? Is it like the
because Marcus Freeman's in their ear. Marcus Freeman's in their ear.
Okay.
I think that he is the perfect coach to handle kind of the expectations and some of the downfalls that he experienced early on in his career, you know, some of those bad losses and how they responded. And I think that he's going to instill that bad taste that they have in their mouth from last season. And I think he's really good. Anytime you hear his players talk, you know, current and former, the way that he gets them to buy in and believe kind of the overall message, I think that's one of his biggest strengths as a coach. So I think he's kind of been through some of those trials and tribulations of, you know, getting too high, getting really low in terms of, you know, what it felt like to be left out of the college football playoff. And I think that the message that he's going to create around that is not going to allow for, you know, what you're talking about.
Yeah. I want to ask this question, and I know the little pooch also wants to answer, but did you see the video of Marcus Freeman informing Joey O'Brien of an individual high school award that he received? Did you see that video by chance? Okay, I'm getting the head shake. Not. Okay, so it's about a 3-minute video, and it's, you know, the same camera that they used in the Peacock documentary whenever they have something going on in his office. It's like this, you know, surveillance camera on his ceiling, basically, you know, over the couple of couches that he's got right there. And he calls Joey O'Brien in, and Joey O'Brien is an early enrollee freshman. And he's like, hey, you know, I love what you've done since you've been here. You've only been here a couple of months. And, you know, I really want to talk to you about team glory and what that means. And he goes on this soliloquy about, you know, team glory leads to individual glory. And we've all heard kind of that mantra by Marcus Freeman. And, you know, he clearly uses that with the kids all the time. You know, and Joey O'Brien's been a part of the program for a month and a half, you know, and he's basically telling them, you know, team glory, and, you know, everything that comes with that. And he's like, your high school won the state championship, you know, last year. Do you think that aided you in winning individual awards? And he's like, yeah, you know, I think it probably did. Then he informs him that he won this amazing award, and I can't even remember what it is, but you know, he's like, congratulations, it's a huge honor, but remember, you know, team glory leads to individual glory. So to your point, even though he was informing them that he won this, you know, national award, this big time award, it doesn't necessarily happen unless your team is good too. And I think that's a really important piece to understand. He's never even suited up for Notre Dame yet. You know what I mean? He's like, your career at Notre Dame is going to be special and, you know, all of these things, but it's about the team first. It's about, you know, what we do as a team that will lead you to individual success. So, you know, he's preaching that all the time, even to guys who have never put on the gold helmet before, which I think is really, really cool. And to your point, he's the right guy for the job at the right time. So that's an exciting thing. And he's very easy to root for, is Marcus Freeman. I think everybody would agree with that.
Unless you're a wrestling coach at New Prairie.
Well, that's a different conversation. That certainly is. We got the state tournament coming up, or not the tournament, state championship coming up here this weekend. I'm wondering if there's going to be any fireworks involved, but we'll have to wait and see.
We got boots on the ground.
We do have boots on the ground, absolutely, and it's going to be very interesting. I will say that. Let's just put it this way: the Freeman entourage will not be sitting in the same area as the other gentleman. So I don't think it's really going to be an issue. I'll just leave it at that.
No, but it's just both parties know that each other are in the building.
Oh,
so like
absolutely.
It's just one of those things that you can't describe, but you feel it in the air. And you feel it when you walk into the gym. You got that little, like hitch in your throat. And if you're Marcus Freeman, you're like, I might have to whoop someone today.
Right. We got a question here from Vanilla Chill, the aforementioned Vanilla Chill. He says, what are some of the things you want to see from defensive line now that it is led by Charlie Partridge, and what improvement would you want to see most?
This is a great, great question.
That needs to happen. Well, the floor is yours, sir.
So with Al Golden, I think it took a little bit of the emphasis off the defensive line because he would bring more frequent pressures from the second and third level, meaning your linebackers, corners, and safeties. Chris Ash is a bit more conservative in that same regard, where he's really not going to bring as many 5-6 man pressures, and let alone from the second level, bringing linebackers. Like for example, it felt like Maris Leofau was blitzing on every play sometimes, but that was just the design of Al Golden's defense. So he was doing his job. So the most important thing that we need to see from Charlie Partridge is how is he creating pressure with just his defensive linemen, knowing that he's not going to get a ton of help from the second and third level like we are accustomed to with the Al Golden defenses. And so I think that he's the right guy for the job because he has a lot of experience in the NFL where you're doing less blitzing and having to create pressure with just your 4 or 5 man front defensive line. So that's the number one thing, in my opinion, especially if they want to play more zone on the back end. Like they're going to play zone. How frequent? We hope to be less than what Chris Ash wanted to do last season. But in the combination of not blitzing and playing a bit more man, your defensive line has to naturally get more pressure. And so that's going to be Charlie Partridge's biggest task this season.
Yeah, for me, I think his biggest task is integrating the transfers in with the guys that are already in the room. Obviously you brought in 3 guys on the defensive line that are going to be an integral part in what Notre Dame wants to do up front. And, we all went into the transfer portal thinking, this is a spot that they need to do better at. They need to get some reinforcements, and they did. And so what does that look like? What does that integration look like? I'm very confident that he's going to be able to do that. But that's what I need to see. If he can do that at a high level, obviously, this defense is not going to miss a beat. Because if you're able to harass the quarterback with just your front 4, just let that secondary cook after that. You know what I mean? It's just obviously one feeds off the other. We've talked about that a million times. But if he can integrate and it's just a seamless transition on the defensive line with these new guys coming in and all of that, I just think that this defense is going to be really, really, really good. So that's what I'm going to be looking for, the integration with the new guys, what that looks like. Is it a seamless situation? What is the rotation look like? How much say does Charlie have in that? So what does all of that personnel type stuff look like? I think that's going to be the number one thing for him to be watching.
Yeah, I think you're going to have depth 1 through 3 at all 4 defensive line positions. And so to your point, how are you rotating them? How are you making sure that you're maximizing each of them? Because it's not really about how good your ones are anymore along the defensive line. I feel like I've said this a lot, and it kind of plays well to the hockey game just ending. It's just line shift changes along the defensive line. It's not a matter of how good your ones are. It's a matter of how good you are 1 through 3. And so it's up to Charlie Partridge to figure out, kind of like basketball, what rotations work well, what guys work well together, how many plays they need to be on the field consecutively before getting a sub. And sometimes, you can't control those things. Offenses dictate that with maybe going no huddle, that sort of stuff. And so I think it's a great point that you were getting to.
Appreciate that. And speaking of great points, I'm going to bring in Trevor Trowbridge here because he came in early. He came in early, so why not bring him into the mix? Bring him into the fold. What's up, Trev? How you doing, man?
Good. This is a new trio. I don't know if all three of us have done a show together. Oh, no. Jesse filled in for you on the spread option, but all three of us have not done it together.
Not together. Not all three of us together. So this is
10 minutes of glory.
This is some pretty serious stuff here. We're breaking barriers. That's what we do. So, quick question here, and I feel like this one is directed at me, but that's just because I'm selfish. Vanilla Chill says, assuming the place kicker is set with Porath, who is the transfer from Purdue, does that mean that Eric Schmidt will be moving back to a more comfortable punter role? And he says, will there be some cross training in a sense with him? Vanilla Chill, from your lips to God's ears, or to Marty Biagi's ears, is what I would say to that. To me, I think Spencer Porath is the easy, obvious choice to be the place kicker. I would still have Eric cross-train. Absolutely. I think the value of having a guy who can do both is very high, and he can do both. I don't think he's a starting place kicker, but he's plenty good to be the backup. You know, he can come in. He can do whatever he needs to do in that regard. He can still kick off for you, you know, that kind of thing. I personally feel like his best asset to Notre Dame is as a punter. And I'm hoping that Notre Dame allows that to happen as well. So I do think they'll still cross-train, and I do hope that he gets to do more punting, and that Spencer Porath is also the starting kicker. I don't know if you guys want to chime in on that at all.
I can't provide anything more than what you just did, so.
That's fair. That's fair. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. That's okay. This is going to be a good one. From ND Blitz. Got a couple of them. Number one, your favorite genre of movies. We'll just go around the horn. What do you guys got?
I mean, it kind of just depends on the mood that I'm in.
That's fair. That's fair.
You know what I mean? I mean, okay, look, by and large, I'll say this. My favorite genre, and it's not an official one that you can go look up on Netflix. I wish that they would, but it's just dumb guy brain movies, man, where I could just sit and be in awe of a big old robot fighting a big old monster. And I could just sit there and just be like, wow, this is spectacular. Plot's terrible. It doesn't matter, but the action's awesome. But in all seriousness, probably like some sort of drama. Quentin Tarantino is my favorite director.
Oh,
so probably one of his.
He has some wild movies. So that's an interesting take. But not, and one that a lot of people share, by the way. Jesse, what are your thoughts here?
I'm not as big of a movie buff as probably the rest of the entire crew, but I would say I kind of lean towards like the action type movies. So like your James Bond, Jason Bourne, that sort of stuff. I have an appreciation for like the Avengers and Transformers and stuff like that, but I'm not too big on like when it gets super kind of nonfiction. You know, like the sci-fi, like Star Wars has never really done anything personally for me. Like Lord of the Rings has never done anything personally for me. Like I know there's a really good, really good franchises and everything.
Out.
It's just like I like I said, I appreciate it, but like when it gets borderline too much sci-fi, that's where I'm not. You kind of lose me. Like what's another popular one that people really like Avatar. I never really got into those either. It's just too far out there for me.
That's fair. I do subscribe to the it depends on what mood I'm in category. I'm down for any kind of a sports movie, to be honest with you. And a good thing Sean's not here because he'd be like, well, you don't like Rocky. You're right.
Trevor's learning a lot about people today.
He is. We're peeling back the onion.
What are we doing here, fellas?
Yeah. I just can't get on board with Rocky. I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. But like most sports movies, I'm down with. Obviously, I've been married for over 20 years. So, you know, a good rom-com is never a bad way to go. I'll be honest with you. Because I don't mind it. And I do kind of like the science fiction-y type movies. But again, I've got to be in the mood for it. You know what I mean? Like, I do like, Star Trek, Star Wars, but like, I'm not so deep into like Star Wars that I'm watching all the offshoot series. You know what I mean? Like, The Mandalorian and like all these other things. It's like I just don't have enough time to keep track of all of that kind of stuff. Like so that's where I watch the main.
I feel like it's hard to be a sports buff and a movie buff junkie at the same time. Like I'm committed to football, basketball, baseball, dabble in the hockey. It's just like, and then when there is free time and the wife isn't yelling at me, why are you watching a random NBA game on a Tuesday night? It's like, all right, you got me. Like, so got to pick and choose because she's not a huge movie person herself. We're more into kind of like there's Survivors
TV show guy.
Yeah, like The Challenge. We're watching The Traders right now, kind of those sort of shows.
Gotcha. I'm a big TV guy. I like series because I like to just put stuff on. But anyway, we could talk about that for a really, really long time. The second part of the question from ND Blitz is rank these: heavy metal, rap, country.
This is easy for me. I'd say rap, heavy metal, and country would be my order. Recently, though, I've been dabbling in country, which is kind of crazy for me. Like if you would ask me that like 4 or 5 years ago, I'd be like, I don't listen to any country at all. But I feel like country is kind of moving away from the twangy kind of, like I'm more of kind of like what you would consider like an old school Johnny Cash kind of country type of fan, that kind of vibe. And so I feel like we've kind of gotten back to that a little bit with some of the more current artists. But heavy metal is good for, like if you need to get fired up, maybe it comes on in the gym, something like that. But that's where I'm at.
Yeah, rap is by far my number one. Heavy metal and country are very situational for me.
That's kind of where I'm at as well.
I can't look, man. If I'm sitting down writing an article, I can't listen to country. I just and I'll just leave it at that. I'll say that. But heavy metal's decent. Definitely in the rotation for the gym. It's hard for me to just kind of drive around listening to Metallica, So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. But I do like I'm with Jesse. Country has grown on me recently.
It's grown on me more as an adult than it ever was when I was younger. I will say that maybe that I'm trying to be more chill as an adult. I don't know. Maybe I identify with all the depressing stories that come through in country music. I don't know. Like you lose your dog and you lose your whatever. Like I don't know. But if I was gonna put these in order, I would probably go country, heavy metal, then rap. But like depending on my mood and depending on the specific heavy metal song or rap song, like would jostle this order. So none of these are like number one overall though. Like I'm more of a classic rock kind of guy. Like I like that kind of stuff.
See, rap is far and away number one for me. Like the country and heavy metal are fighting for the scraps at this point.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. The third question is actually a football question from ND Blitz. It says, what do you think the D-line rotation will look like numbers-wise in 2026? I'm going to throw this one to Trevor first because you guys are more in the weeds on the depth chart than probably Jesse and I are on this show.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, it wouldn't probably somewhere in between 8 to 10. They played 10 defensive linemen somewhere last year. I mean, you're going to have ideally if a fourth guy can step up, 4 defensive ends, between Boubacar, Bryce Young, Keon Keeley, and I mean, assuming Logan Thomas is going to be at the weight to do it at 207 pounds right now. But between them, if Cole Mullins kicks back outside and then the defensive tackle rotation, ideally you have 4 to 5 guys. So that's where I would be at.
The last mailbag question here from Jake on our premium message board. It says, could you see a scenario where Notre Dame runs more 4 wide receiver sets next year than we've seen in many years? For example, Faison, Greathouse, Porter, and Graham, with CJ slinging it all over the yard. Wouldn't that be fun to watch? Best of luck to any defense out there. What do you guys think about that one?
I'll go ahead and start this one off. I would think logistically it would make sense. I think you don't bring in, some of the talent that they did in the transfer portal with Porter and Graham, knowing you have Faison and Greathouse and really some of the younger guys too, Micah Gilbert, Elijah Burris Jr. Like there's a ton of talent on the roster, and to go out and get more wide receiver talent, I don't think you do that unless you have kind of an inkling of, getting away from the more traditional heavy tight end sets that you see Notre Dame run. I don't think that they're as deep at the tight end position as they've been in the past. I'm not saying that the talent isn't there. I just don't think the development overall is, quite there in terms of tight end production. And so I would definitely, expect to see more of it. I don't know how much, but I do agree that it would be something that plays well to CJ Carr's skill sets.
Go ahead, Trev.
Yeah, could I see it? Absolutely. I mean, and the depth goes even beyond these 4 guys. I mean, that's before we get into the conversation of any of the incoming freshmen. Cam Williams, Micah Gilbert, Logan Saldate could carve out a role too. So could they? Yeah. I think what Notre Dame's depth allows them to do this year is you can become more matchup based. And depending on the defense that you are matching up against, it will allow you to go more, potentially 10 personnel, 11, 12. I doubt we'll see any 21 personnel because if we're not going to see it with Love and Price, I don't know if we're going to see it with Aeneas Williams and Kedron Young, but you never know. But yeah, I could definitely see a scenario where that happens.
I think it would be fun. I think it would definitely would be scenario based. It would be matchup based. I do completely agree with that, Trev. And I think that there are going to be opportunities where, maybe it's a 2-minute drill. Maybe it's a situation where you just want to get up and down the field a little bit faster and you're going to go no huddle. And hey, we're going to throw 4 wide receivers that can all burn you deep. They can all, run good routes. You go trips on one side, single guy on the other, spread the box out and then run the ball. I mean, let's go. There's a lot of different things you can do with 4 receivers. And I think Mike Denbrock likes tight ends. He's obviously the tight ends coach. Notre Dame has talented tight ends, but I wouldn't be upset to see a little 4 wide receiver action at times as well. So we'll see what happens. We're going to get a little taste, I would imagine, in the spring coming up here. But we're not going to get a good idea until game number 1. I mean, let's be honest. They're not going to show us anything fun or exciting in spring ball or in fall practice, in that regard. So we'll all find out together when Notre Dame hits the turf of Lambeau Field. So, all right, we are at the top of the hour. Sadly, we must say goodbye to Jesse. He's going to be out and about, but we'll be back. Trevor and I will be back on the other side of the 6 o'clock hour. You are listening to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat along with IrishBreakdown.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat, along with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Vince D'Addario, joined now in the 6 o'clock hour by my main man, Trevor Trowbridge. Trevor, how goes it today, my friend?
It's good. Back in the swing of everything. Just got back from vacation. So
nice. I was wondering about that. For a little peek behind the curtain, I'm the one that cuts up podcasts and does all that fun stuff, and I haven't heard the dulcet tones of Trevor Trowbridge lately on the podcast, and I was like, what is going on with my man? Where's he at? Is he sick? Is he under the weather? What's going on? So a little vacay, huh?
Oh, yeah. Took a trip out to Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, okay. A little dry heat.
Oh, yeah. A lot of golf.
Did you bring the sticks? I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm warming up for June 22nd.
I'm just saying, last year you didn't get a lot in before June 22nd, and we all paid the price because I didn't hold up my end of the bargain by any stretch of the imagination. So, a little golf scramble in our future. So we literally shot par in a golf scramble. That's not good. Like that's really kind of pathetic. And so we've got some atonement this time around. We definitely have some atonement. So looking forward to that. We got a few months away before we get to that point, but really looking forward to that. You were back on the afternoon show. Why don't you let the people know what you guys talked about this afternoon, and then I'll let them know where they can find that conversation.
Yeah, we went through our midweek rundown. So talked about some sort of breaking news. There was some playoff predictions out. I believe Brett McMurphy from On3 had Notre Dame winning the national championship in this way too early series that everybody's been cranking out. We talked about the hype Notre Dame's getting. We talked about defensive breakouts, players on the defense, and then we wrapped it all up with a mailbag. Okay.
All right. So you can find that conversation over on the YouTube page, the Irish Breakdown YouTube page, and then, of course, the audio-only version if you are a subscriber to the Irish Breakdown podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Those will be available tomorrow starting at 6 a.m., and so that is on the docket of things to do when this show is over. I get to cut that up, put that up, and get it ready to roll. So, if you're on the old treadmill about 6:30, all you got to do is head on over to the Irish Breakdown podcast, and you can listen to all of Brian and Trevor and their discussion. So definitely check that out. All right. It is the 6 o'clock hour. That means it is time for rapid fire. Trev, are you ready, sir?
Stay ready. Never have to get ready, Vince.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. All right. First question. So I mentioned it in the first hour. Today was the first opportunity for the guys on the beat to speak to the transfer players, the guys that came in through the transfer portal. And this is their first opportunity to talk to the media. And so we've got a few questions about that. And so we're going to kind of get after it here. So it's blank that new Irish defensive lineman Tion Gray says Marcus Freeman was his, quote, main contact, unquote, in his recruitment out of the transfer portal from Oregon. And they talked on the phone daily during the recruiting process.
Yeah, I guess I'd say it's intentional. I mean, look, Tion Gray has now been named Notre Dame's best transfer portal pickup by ESPN and CBS Sports. And I know it might not be the sexy name that everybody thinks about in the transfer portal. You think about the two wide receivers that come over from Ohio State, the defensive back that for the last 2 years has been groomed under Deion Sanders. But it's this 6'6", 330+ pound defensive tackle from Oregon. I think it's very intentional that Marcus Freeman, a defensive-minded head coach, was very hands-on with getting him in because he also he brings something to the table that Notre Dame doesn't necessarily have currently in their active defensive tackle rotation. So initially, Vince, I think it's very intentional, and I very much appreciate it on my end as a watcher.
Yeah, 100%. And I think and again, we're into year 3, going into year 4 of Marcus Freeman and year 5 of him being on the staff at all. And, we know that he's a good recruiter, but how do we know that he's a good recruiter? Because the stories like this, that he's willing to be the main contact. And he said that in his opening press conference when he got the job as a head coach. He's like, I am the point person for all of our recruiting. He's like, my assistant coaches are all going to be amazing recruiters. That's obviously a very important, aspect of being an assistant coach at Notre Dame, but I'm the point person. And it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to show it. And he shows it year in and year out. We hear stories just like this. And so if I was filling in the blank, I would say it's typical. Like, it's typical. Like, this is what I expect. Maybe that's not fair that I'm expecting that from the head coach at the University of Notre Dame, but it's what I expect from Marcus Freeman. I think it's what he expects from himself. He has a reputation, and he upholds it to the nth degree when it comes to recruiting. And if this program at Notre Dame is going to remain the perennial, playoff contender, we'll call it that, playoff contender, and then at times championship contender, right? It's going to start with recruiting, and that is what Notre Dame has decided to do. It's what Marcus Freeman has decided to do. They're primarily a high school recruiting program, and then they will fill in the gaps in the transfer portal, and they're going to go get who fits those gaps the way they want them fit. And that's exactly what he did. And he was the point person for Tion Gray, and obviously he was very successful at doing just that. So it's expected. Like, I love it, and I'm spoiled that it's expected, but that's where we're at. So Gray also says that he plans to drop his weight from 335 down to 315 or 320. So, Trevor, do you want him bigger, or do you want him, quote, slimmer? I mean, slim, 315, 320. So you want him bigger, or you want him slimmer?
I'm going to take the option behind door number 3, Vince, and 315 to 320 sounds pretty great. I mean, look, he had a very limited role at Oregon. And when you go back and you pop in the film, they very much used him as a plugger. I think he ended the season with like 1 pressure as a 6'6", 335-pound interior defensive lineman. That tells me that Notre Dame wants him to take on a much bigger role this year, and not just – we had the similar concerns to Jared Dawson. Mm-hmm. We looked at what Jared Dawson did at Louisville. It's like, okay, you're going to get 20 to 25 snaps a game out of this guy, and you have to hope that other guys like Gabe Rubio and Jason Onye and Donovan Heinrich can kind of pick it up. Well, as the season progressed, Donnie Heinrich was playing a little hurt. Gabe Rubio ended the season injured. And so Jared Dawson then started to take on 30, then 35, and then 40. And so I think that's kind of the path that they see for Tion Gray. I mean, he's a big dude. He's very twitchy. And so you can only imagine what, shaving off 10 to 15 pounds can do for a player like that.
Yeah.
So I guess when I say stay the same, I mean stay the same as in that range of 315 to 320, but not necessarily a need to be 335 per se. You do still have Sean Sevillano, who's like over 340. I think Davian Dixon's close to 320 as well. So definitely some plugger options on the board as well.
No, I dig it. We have seen what Notre Dame can do with an athletic, center of the defense. And I think that's where they want to be. They don't play with just a plugger. Like, that's not really kind of what they do. Could they? Sure. If you have the right personnel and things like that, could that be something that's in your repertoire? Sure. Of course it could be. But I like this. I think a bit slimmed version of Mr. Gray is not a bad place for them to be. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Me too, man. I mean, they're trying to get him into to a similar body type of what Jerron Jones was back in 2016.
That's a great, okay. I dig that.
Yeah. Just long, athletic, twitchy guy. Yeah, I can see that very much.
And let me see. I want to say if I remember, he's wearing number 0. So he's gonna, it's gonna be. He doesn't want to be like this kind of a 0. He wants to be a little more slim,
more oblong. He doesn't want to. Yeah. He doesn't want to be number O.
Correct. Yeah.
Number
Right.
0.
Exactly. 100%. So I dig that. Anytime a defensive lineman, especially an interior defensive lineman, goes with the single digit, you got it. That slims you down a little bit, So he wants to fit the 0. I dig that. I dig that a lot. All right. Another question here about the transfers. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Michigan defensive back transfer Jaden Sanders says Notre Dame's recent track record of developing NFL defensive backs to the NFL was a big factor in his decision to transfer to Notre Dame.
Oh, I think you got to go with impactful. I mean, this is a position that started coming along towards, I guess you could call it like the latter part of my youthfulness in Notre Dame's fan base. I mean, Vince, this. Back from 2005 to 2017, really, the cornerback position was You had some flashes in the pan. Cole Luke was good, and Kavari Russell was good in 2015, but then in between there was kind of like, okay, you had guys with potential, but they never really ended up panning out, or their development just wasn't where it needed to be. I think of guys like Robert Blanton and Darren Walls and Gary Gray. But for a cornerback at Michigan, a program that predominantly has been known for its defense over the last couple seasons, to look at a school like Notre Dame over other options, even in the Big Ten, like in Oregon or in Ohio State, to look at a school like Notre Dame, say, I want to go to that school because of the NFL talent that they're producing, I think that speaks volumes about what Mike Mickens did to get Notre Dame's defensive backfield up to the point that it's at right now. I mean, if you would have told me 5 years ago that defensive backs being coached up by Deion Sanders and going to Michigan and playing in the Big Ten would have then elect to go to Notre Dame because of the next level talent that they're producing, I don't know if I would have believed you, but that's a reality that we're in right now. And I got to say, I'm enjoying it.
Well, earlier in the show, we talked about, how much impact does an impact quarterback have on your wide receiver recruiting, right? Mm. And it's big. It has a lot of impact on your wide receiver recruiting. I think there's no difference here. Notre Dame is starting to be known as, defensive back U. I mean, with Mike Mickens and everything that he was able to do and the recruiting and all of that kind of stuff, people notice, like kids notice, coaches notice, parents notice, like people notice what's going on at Notre Dame. And they're starting to see these freshman All-Americans, and they're starting to see these regular All-Americans and where they're going in the draft, and then what they're doing in the NFL as well. And so I think that's all impactful for sure. I love that word that you use to fill in the blank. It's absolutely impactful. And Notre Dame is starting to now have that niche, not only in the defensive backfield, but now they're getting it at quarterback, and now they're starting to get it at wide receiver, and they're, linebacker, all of these different places. They've already had O-line and tight end, right? And so, Notre Dame is doing a very, very good job of just doing their own thing, but then allowing their own thing to speak volumes about what they're doing. It's kind of like Marcus Freeman was talking about, right? It's team glory. You get individual glory, like the team glory and what they're able to do. You're getting the individual glory, which is now getting the attention of recruits, not only coming out of high school, but also in the transfer portal. And I think it's huge.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at the portal class that they just brought in. They brought in 2 wide receivers from Ohio State, an interior defensive tackle from Oregon, another interior defensive tackle from Pitt. They brought in a cornerback from Michigan, and they also brought in a cornerback from Colorado.
Colorado, yeah.
I mean, that's, talk about impact.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about as impactful as it gets. And I don't know what service it was. I think it was ESPN. I'm not even 100% sure, but they ranked Notre Dame's portal class as, I think, 3rd in the country. I think you probably saw that. You got your finger on the pulse of all that stuff that's going on out there. Was I right? Is it 3rd that they came in?
Yeah.
Do you think that's a good spot? Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah, because outlets like that will also gauge it on like volume. It's like what recruiting services do.
Sure.
Like Notre Dame on 3 has the #1 incoming recruiting class for 2026. Other outlets have USC because they're bringing in like 50 guys.
Right,
right. I mean, it's a little bit exaggerated, but you get
and yet not. So, I mean, it is what it is. All right, let's see what we got next. Okay, here's a quote from Alabama defensive end transfer. So he's no longer Alabama. He's now Notre Dame. From Keon Keeley. He says, quote, "I just feel like this is a blessing to be in this opportunity, and I feel like it's at a perfect time. There's no better opportunity than to be at Notre Dame," unquote. What are your thoughts?
2. One of them is kind of wish he would have came into Notre Dame in the same class as Greg Bowen and Adon Schuler. But look, there's no more valuable lesson than just kind of going through life and living it. You know what I mean? And I think that's what happened with Keon Keeley. I know at the time I wasn't a part of Irish Breakdown, but I was an avid listener, which, by the way, sidebar, it was kind of nice going on vacation. I turned into a listener again.
Right.
I didn't get to do that because I refused to sit down and just listen to my voice.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm good off that. Hats off to you for having to listen to me almost every day when you're cutting up pods. But I like that he is now, the road led him back here.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, my dad would always kind of tell me, it's like, hey, all roads lead you different paths. Some of it will lead you away from here and some of them will lead you back home. And in a way, my job that I have now brought me back up to South Bend. And I'm up in South Bend and Elkhart area more than I thought that I was going to be at 28, almost 29 years old. So it's kind of like that. with Keon Keeley. You know, it's you go and you experience it, you go full circle. And I understand it. He wanted to go play for Nick Saban's Alabama. And then
it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, here's a quote. I'm going to play a little audio, and it's going to be very much. I'm going to hold my mic to the computer because that's just how I'm going to roll here. Okay. But I will give credit to Matt Freeman. He's the one that pulled this audio. But I definitely want to play it because it's Keon Keeley talking about being at when he was committed to Notre Dame and what that recruitment process was like. So I want to play this because it's really good.
It's crazy. Just being with the guys. I mean, we had always kept in touch, because those are my guys. I remember in that recruiting class, it was really a movement. Like, we really wanted to start something, and obviously they've done it, gone to the national championship. And so when I came back, it felt like we took off right where we left off. So,
what do you think about that, Trev? That comment that he made?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just goes to show how strong of a relationship you truly build during the recruiting process.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's crazy. And so you hear it a lot. You hear about the anchors of recruiting classes and who intentionally comes back to on-campus visits after they've already committed and they're a done deal. And Drake Bowen was one of those key pieces for the 2023 class. And so it gives you a lot of confidence because you hear all the stories about the transfer portal nightmare and how some players aren't received or others become locker room problems. It just goes to show you that Notre Dame, and Marcus Freeman especially, is somebody that values fit over just what you bring to the table. I think that's huge.
Yeah, I think it's huge as well. And I'm right there with you. I remember it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but he was the class of 23 and, was super excited when he was going to come to Notre Dame, and then, the flip and all of those things. And it just felt like he was always going to be a Notre Dame guy. So this is where the transfer portal is actually really kind of a good thing. Because if the transfer portal wasn't what it was, I don't think he comes back to Notre Dame. And so, he comes back with a couple of years of eligibility and an opportunity to make some waves with the guys that he would have been here with the entire time. But I'm with you. I wish he would have been here the whole time. But hey, I'll take what I can get. When he went into the portal, I didn't think it was possible that he'd be able to come back, and he did. And I'm super fired up about it. So, all right. Fred Hale. He's Notre Dame's assistant strength coach. He's been visible on the sidelines for a while. He was a holdover, I believe, from Brian Kelly. He's been here for a little while. And he's taken a job with the Eagles. Okay, so is this a big deal or a little deal?
Probably somewhere in between. You never want to lose any sort of continuity on the staff, right? And Fred Hale was that for the strength and conditioning program. Now, with that being said, I view this as kind of like you maintain a coordinator, but you lose some assistant coaches. Something very similar that's going on Notre Dame's defensive side of the ball. They just went through and replaced all of their assistant coaches as well. And so that's how I kind of look at this one, man, because as long as the guy at the top is still able to preach his philosophy and his ideology, whoever gets brought in as the assistant, or if somebody gets promoted within, they can kind of just keep that going on. But that's why I wouldn't call it a big deal, but I also don't want to diminish the fact that Notre Dame is losing one of their most tenured coaches on staff. I mean, Fred Hale was the one that took over after Bayless left.
Yes.
And so he's been on staff for quite some time.
Because Bayless kind of left him in a lurch because he left, I think it was during fall camp, wasn't it, that he left?
Mm-hmm.
And so Fred Hale took over for the rest of that season. I mean, that's the tall task. And he did a good job just, bridging the gap until they were able to find a replacement. So it's somewhere in the middle. I mean, it's not, I don't want to belittle what he was able to give to the program. But he's an assistant. I mean, he's not the head guy. He's an assistant. And it's the same way I kind of think about the assistants, that have left on the defensive side of the football. Like, it's a deal, but they replace him with really good guys. And I'm going to assume that they're going to replace Fred with a really good guy. And, people want to come to Notre Dame. They want to come to Notre Dame. They want to be a part of this program. Same with the players, same with coaches. They want to be a part of this. And, whoever they get is going to be a good get. And so I'm fired up and I'm looking forward to it. All right, we still have a few more questions to get to in rapid fire, but before we do, we are going to take a quick break. And so on the other side, we'll finish that up. Maybe we'll get to a few mailbag questions as well. You are listening to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat along with IrishBreakdown.com. Welcome back to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat along with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Vince D'Addario along with Trevor Trowbridge, and we are in the sprint to the finish here on WSBT. And we've got a few more rapid fire questions, and it's a Mailbag Wednesday, and so we've got some other mailbag questions that we may have time to get to as well. Tomorrow's show will be a very shortened version of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat because Notre Dame women's basketball is on the road, and they're taking on Wake Forest with a tip time of 6 o'clock Eastern. And there's a pregame show that starts at 5:45, which means Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat will go from 5:05 to 5:35. So a little half hour, little something to get you ready for the women's basketball tip. An important one. Notre Dame needs to win a couple of these games. They got a great opportunity to do that against Wake Forest, and then again on the road against SMU, and then 2 tough tests against Syracuse and Louisville to round things out. So they're trying to get to that magic number of 10 conference wins, and so 2 more, and they get to that spot. So in case anybody's wondering, by the way, because we didn't get any mailbag questions about the women's basketball team, they are in solid shape at the moment. They are number 25 in the net rankings. And the new bracketology that has come out has the Irish as a 7 seed, headed to Baton Rouge in the Baton Rouge regional. So, people are worried that they weren't going to make it. I feel pretty good about it with the 25 net ranking. And so, we'll see what happens over the next 4 games, but I think they get the next 2, and if they even split the last 2 or go 0-2, I think they're still solidly in the field. So keep an eye on Notre Dame women's basketball. Of course, you can hear all the action right here on Sports Radio WSBT, and you can hear Sean Stiers on the call. You can also check it out on the Odyssey app and check that out. Wherever you are, wherever you have internet access, you can check that out. So game tomorrow. So a shortened version of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat. All right. With the programming note out of the way, let's get back to a little bit of rapid fire. Trev, this is an interesting one that just went official today. It is blank that former Northern Illinois head coach Thomas Hammock is leaving the Husky program to become the running backs coach for the Seahawks. Now, you can take this any direction that you want, timing, new conference, whatever you want, take it whatever direction you want to go.
Yeah, I think it is unfortunate, but understandable. And when I mean unfortunate, I don't necessarily mean for Hammond as an individual coach. I understand that look, in this current day and age of college football, I think you're going to see a lot of good coaches leave to go to the next level because of what the landscape of college football looks like right now. Why the heck is Northern Illinois joining the Mountain West?
Makes no sense.
What's happening here? What are we doing? Why is Sacramento State joining the MAC?
That one makes even less sense. And they're taking, not to go too far off tangent here, they're taking a bath joining the MAC. Number one, not only obviously travel and all of those things, but it's like 5 years before they even get like any revenue from the MAC. Like they are off the reservation, and I don't understand what the appeal for Sacramento State is in joining a Midwestern conference. This isn't USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten. Like that one, like it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense, from a monetary situation. This one makes no sense to me whatsoever.
No, and look, the job of a head coach at a G5 program is difficult as it is already. You are, especially when you have success. I mean, Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame in South Bend 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have success at a program like that, what happens? Your players get poached. So you're already having to fight that battle, and now you're already having to go fight the battle. And now you're going to have to start fighting the battle as Northern Illinois to have to go out and play home games against UNLV or road games against UNLV, road games against Boise State. It's just, what are we doing here? That makes no sense to me at all. So it's great for him individually, and hopefully that'll lead to, if he has success in the NFL, to producer Ty's point with the defending Super Bowl champs. Maybe that'll lead to a bigger job at a P4 school. Who knows?
Sure.
But overall, it's kind of unfortunate because it's just another casualty in the current state of college football, in my opinion.
Well, and from what I read, and I will treat this as accurate until it's not. He's going to be one of the highest paid position coaches in the NFL, which makes that decision a little easier for him.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I mean, look, if you're a Northern Illinois fan, or a parent or whatever the case may be, it's crappy timing. I mean, it just is. I mean, you're starting spring ball here in a couple of weeks. You just got your signing class, situated and all of those different things. And now you don't have a head coach. That stinks. The timing stinks. They'll be okay. The transition to a new conference, whether I understand it or not, is still something that takes a leader to negotiate. As far as I'm talking about just negotiating the path for your team to be in a new conference. You know what I mean? Not negotiating the why they're there. I'm saying just, negotiating the path. You've got stadiums you've never visited before, which means you're staying in hotels you've never stayed in before. All of these different things. You're traveling airfare that you've never traveled before. Those are all new things that you have to traverse, which is it's a lot. When you're in a conference for decades, exactly where you're staying when you go down to Muncie or where you go to face the Buffalo Bulls, or whatever the case may be. What that road trip looks like. They don't know what any of these road trips look like, this year going into a new conference. And so now you're bringing in a new coach. What does that mean for the assistant coaches? Are they potentially going to lose their jobs? So there's just a lot of what ifs now that you don't necessarily want to have
right
in the middle of February. So it's unfortunate if you're Northern Illinois, if you're Coach Hammock. I get it, man. That's a tough thing to turn down. And yeah, why would you not want to join the Super Bowl champs? I get it. It just stinks. So speaking of running backs coaches, former Notre Dame running backs coach Dylan McCullough is expected to be named to the same position for the Oklahoma Sooners. He was a candidate for the Chiefs running back coaching position, of which he held previously, by the way. That went to DeMarco Murray, the former Oklahoma running backs coach. So you're seeing all these dominoes, right? You get one guy jumps and another guy gets the job and all of these different things. And we talked about Dylan McCullough being up for the Chiefs job and him kind of quote unquote going home again because he was the Chiefs running backs coach before he came to Notre Dame. And it's okay, well, you went to the Raiders. Now you're going back to the Chiefs. Is it full circle? Is it a letdown? Where are we at? And now he's going to fill in for DeMarco Murray, who ended up getting the Chiefs running back job. So with all of that, do you buy or sell the move for Dylan McCullough back in college after, I think, 1 year in the NFL?
Yeah. Taking my Notre Dame hat off here for a second, I buy the move. I mean, the Sooners just got one of the best in the business, if not the best in the business. And so Brett Venables just added a heck of an assistant coach to his staff.
Yeah.
That being said, kind of rough knowing that Notre Dame's running back coach that got this room to where it was essentially at is gone and was only not at the collegiate level for another year. Now, I thought Jaywan Sider, it took a little bit of time to get some traction going with the running backs, but I mean, Jaywan Sider was also the position coach in the same year that Notre Dame brought home the first Doak Walker Award winner in the history of their program. So definitely not a shot at Coach Sider by any means. It's just we know what Dylan McCullough did for this program, and it's tough to see him back at the collegiate level less than 365 days after he left the collegiate level.
Yeah, I know. And it's I absolutely buy it for Oklahoma. This is a home run hire if you're Oklahoma. You just lost DeMarco Murray, who's obviously a local legend, right? And I just it's a buy for Oklahoma, but it's a tough buy for me for Dylan McCullough. Obviously he's going to get paid and he's going to, he's back in college where he was really, really good, all of those different things, but it's a step down from Notre Dame. right? And I'm trying to be as neutral as positive thinking about that, but it is a step down. Like Oklahoma's a step down from Notre Dame. So I don't really buy it from his standpoint, but I don't know what else there was to do, like was there other NFL jobs that he was interested in, that kind of a thing. It's just a weird kind of situation if you're dealing with McCullough. And look, you took your shot. You went to the NFL. You were in the NFL. You went back to the NFL. It's just unfortunate that your future was tied to the Raiders and that dumpster fire that they've got going on over there.
Well, I mean, and he got the most out of Ashton Genty, at least what he could, with an offensive line that was just Swiss cheese. I mean, look, man, I'm telling you, that might have been the worst offensive line I've ever seen on a football field. And I watched Notre Dame in 2007. Okay. So that was a rough performance.
Yeah. Yeah, no, completely agree. All right, we got a couple more minutes, and I want to get back to a couple of these other mailbag questions. So we've got some good ones. We were talking about the defensive tackle position, and we got the portal guys coming in. They were a chance to talk to the media. Bitten by the Party Animal wants to know who is Notre Dame's best defensive tackle at the end of the season. So a little projection here.
Okay, I'm going to stick with the common theme. All the more reason to be subscribed. Bring me message boards at boards@irishbreakdown.com, and also another reason to be subscribed to the podcast channel. Now, with that being said, I'm going to stay consistent with what I said earlier today, and I'm going to go with Jason Onye. I think Tion Gray is going to have a role carved out. I love what Francis Brew brings to the table, but Jason Onye got granted this 6 year of eligibility, and this is kind of back-to-back seasons where, in 2025, after some off-the-field issues, he was graciously brought back by his teammates and by his coaches and started to really turn it on in the back half of the regular season. And now this year, the NCAA has granted him with a 6 year of eligibility to come back and kind of anchor this interior defensive line and help bring along some of the younger players. Because the benefit is you get Brew for another year. You get Tion Gray for another year. I think the only two defensive tackles that have to be done after this year, I believe, are Elijah Hughes and Jason Onye. And Elijah Hughes might be able to come back. I have to check. But it's kind of like that swan song, The Last Dance, if you will, for Jason Onye. And I think he's really going to put some people on notice this year. Notre Dame is set to have a very dominant defensive line. And I think that Jason Onye is going to play an integral part in that. I do.
All right. My heart wants to say Keon Keeley. I just don't know if he's going to get the playing time to be the best. You know what I mean? So I'm going to, just to be a contrarian, I'm going to go with Boubacar Traore as my – well, he's not a defensive tackle. He's defensive.
I was about to say, on the D-line, I agree with you.
Okay. All right.
D-line,
I was thinking D-line. It says defensive tackle. So I'll go with Brew. I'll just to be different that he comes in and just makes a massive impact this year.
Love it. Vince is a part of the Brew crew. You heard it here first. Ivy Nation Sportsbeat.
That's tough, man. As a Cubs fan, to say I'm part of the Brew crew, just going to throw that out there. I don't know how I feel about that. All right, Joseph Barrett, staying with the defensive line theme. He says Charlie Partridge hire seems like a great fit. Seems like Marcus prioritizes coaches with previous working experience. Do you think it's more essential for a defensive staff standpoint?
I guess in like previous working experience, I'm assuming, Joseph, you're talking about just the overall resume that they've put together. I don't want to discredit anything that Al Washington has done. I mean, he was a linebackers coach at Ohio State. He was a defensive line coach, I believe, for Boston College, his alma mater. So it's not like Al Washington didn't bring that to the table. But what I will say is Charlie Partridge has a lot more duration in the field than what Al Washington brought to the table. I mean, he was coaching J.J. Watt in college. And J.J. Watt has since retired from the NFL. And so multiple years of experience. He brought in somebody that has familiarity going up against Notre Dame when he was a defensive line coach at Pitt. So, yeah, I mean, more essential, I mean, give or take. I don't necessarily buy into you have to have X amount of years of experience to do something. I'm a big fan of Marcus Freeman as a head coach. When he was hired as head coach at Notre Dame, he was there first.
Yeah,
that was his first head coaching job. So it depends from time to time, but I mean, by and large, sure, especially when it comes down to the development of an individual position. So sure.
All right, I think we got time for maybe one, maybe two, depending on the answer here. I want to throw our guy Ty, the producer, some love. He put a question into the mailbag. He says, "Do you think the transfer portal quarterbacks have a better shot at being more successful in the NFL due to history of moving programs and having to learn new playbooks quickly?"
Potentially. I mean, because the track record, I mean, it's currently in the NFL, it's pretty split, right? Lamar Jackson was always with Louisville. Josh Allen, I believe, was always with Wyoming. But then you have other examples like Joe Burrow went from Ohio State to LSU, and Jalen Hurts went from Alabama to Oklahoma. Pat Mahomes, though, was always with Texas Tech, I believe. And so potentially, I think you could see that. I think some of it just comes down to fit and what team you go to in the pros.
You can't tell me that, it's, for example, that CJ Carr is not going to be a successful pro because he stayed at Notre Dame his whole career. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that you're saying that, Ty. I'm saying that, learning a playbook, that's a skill, obviously. But there's nothing much you can say that I'm going to think that CJ Carr can't read a playbook. So anyway, we got to get out of here. I missed the hard out. You're listening to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat along with IrishBreakdown.com.